All right, here we go. Welcome back.
Dune 1.
We're doing Dune 1. We're going to summarize Dune 1. Mainly, this is part 2, but we're going to summarize Dune part 1 also. But, yeah, so we'll start off with Dune. Big note here. Have not read the books. We know here a little bit.
Not even close.
Yeah, we don't know that much in the books, but we know here and there. And so, but yeah, so if we get something wrong, that's on us. Or we don't understand anything, how anything's going, that's on us. So, but yeah, all right.
And
so
who knows if like the movies are like 100% in line with the books?
Yeah. So, but yeah, okay. So we'll start off with Dune Part 1. We start off on the planet Arrakis.
Yeah, they're basically like they're explaining the whole need for spice.
Yeah. They're telling you how spice work for interstellar travel and how wealthy, and then basically how long how do you say their name?
Harkonnen.
The Harkonnens have been getting rich off their planet and doing this forever, or whatever. And they're becoming more wealthy than the Emperor himself, or whatever.
Yeah.
Which I feel like is a problem because he has a problem with Duke Leto because Duke Leto is getting like in favor with the people, but then at the same time, the Baron and his people are getting richer than the Emperor. So I mean, which one do you really want on your side? You know what I'm saying?
Another thing too was like apparently the Atreides people were like masters of sea warfare and masters of air warfare, so they were like starting to get afraid that
Yeah. And so anyway, so then we learn about how spice works. We meet the two houses of the movie is the Atreides and then the Harkonnens. And so then we shoot to the Atreides. We meet Paul.
They show Paul. They show his mentor.
Yeah, we see Paul and his mom sitting at the table. She's eating nothing but grape and water. Jesus Christ!
The rich family. And, what they get is just a glass of water and some grapes.
And so then we shoot to the Emperor and his big old like, I guess him like inviting him to take over Arrakis. So then they show up. The Emperor's people show up, and this big old thing, which is basically. It's a hard way of making the Duke not say no because of how much it cost him.
Yeah, he has like his technical guy like run the numbers for how much money it would cost for them to ship all those people over just for like a ceremonial thing. Apparently, it's a whole lot.
Yeah, and so Duke, of course, is like, there's no call we do not accept, no faith that we betray. He's like, so we accept it. So then they go to Arrakis, and they send Duncan Idaho over there first, Aquaman.
Yeah.
They send him over there to try to become with the Fremen, who were on Arrakis first.
They're trying to make like a peace treaty with the Fremen.
Yeah, unlike the Harkonnens who just try to keep killing
hunting
them.
them.
Yeah. And so then they arrive on. So Duncan Idaho is with the Fremen, but Paul wants to go with him because he's having visions of Duncan dying. So he wants to go with them, but of course they say no. So then Duncan leaves, and so that leaves him here. Paul and his dad talk for a little bit, and Paul's like, "What if I don't want to be you?" And he's like, then you've been whatever I want you to be, and that's my son. Then they go. So then the next day they shoot off to Arrakis. They land there. The people are like, I forget what the prophecy's name is. It's like, Mom, I
don't even remember.
I forget because then they got one for him and then they got one for the worm. I think the Al Ghabib is like the worm, and then the Malab or something like that is Paul. I really don't know the names.
It's definitely a name that's very hard to remember.
Yeah. and so anyway, so
basically it's like Arrakis's like Messiah. That's what they say.
Exactly. And so they're cheering them on, and then because they believe or whatever, and then the Bene I totally forgot about that. Before they go to Arrakis, the Bene Gesserit shows up, the leader of them. They
test Paul.
Yeah,
they test to see if like he has the mental fortitude to not like go crazy with power.
Yeah,
I think they're also testing him to see how controllable he is.
Yeah, well, he puts his hand in the box, and it's like, apparently in the books or whatever, when he puts his hand in the box, he's feeling his like hand burn on fire. So that's why in the movie when like his hand is like all like skeleton stuff and it's just like ash, that's what he's feeling, his hand just being engulfed in flames. And so he holds it together pretty good. And then so then they because his mom was supposed to have a daughter instead of a boy, but she wanted to go the harder way around because she thought that she could make, the prophecy.
Yeah, apparently she can control, like, if she has a boy or a girl, but she wanted to sway things.
Yeah, she wanted to be like, she was the rebel, exactly. So then the Betry is like, oh, but so the main, the main old lady, she's just like, he shows promise, but they're really on their female stuff. So they're like, should have been a female. So much waste in the male. And so then we shoot to Arrakis. They go there, literally there for a day. A day they are there and shit is hitting the fan. Their equipment is not working. Nobody likes them. Like, it's just like, damn, bro. And so, I mean,
assassination attempt.
Yes, like as soon as they get there, like Paul's like, oh, because they go from they're like showing them how they harvest the spice, and one of the machines like to pick up the harvester is broken. One of the hooks is not working because there's a sandworm coming in, and so they're like, oh, and so then Duke Leto's like, forget the spice, I want those people on my ships or whatever. So then they do that, and then so their equipment, they got faulty equipment. The Harkonnens took half of everything, almost everything. So they don't really have anything to get
processing stuff.
And then also Paul, once he's done from all that, gets inside, and then was almost assassinated by a little hunter little thing.
Barely got his stuff unpacked, and they already got an assassin mosquito coming to poke him to death. Yeah. I guess it's got poison in it or something.
Yeah, so that stops that. And so then, and so basically, as soon as they got there, shit has hit the fan. And, I mean, they have not been able to rest or nothing. I mean, they are just bombarded with stuff. And then, before when they're going to do the, to check on the harvest machine, they meet the Judge of Change or whatever. And you can't really tell if she's with the Emperor. I mean, the Emperor definitely, hired her to do something to help them sabotage them. But then she's like, well, damn, these Atreides people aren't really that bad. She kind of likes my people or whatever. Or they kind of like my people. And so they do that. And then, the only thing about that bothered me about that scene is the fucking, when she's checking on the suits. She's just like, oh, here you go. And she's just grabbing them, just tugging. She's like, yeah, this isn't coming off.
She's not helping them put them on. She's just tugging on them.
Yeah.
See if they done it right.
Which they learned in the second movie, because I remember they did the same thing in the second movie, but some people's straps are not on, so then they clip on some of the strap. I'm like, okay, so you learned your lesson from the first one, because the only thing she does is do the ankle thing with them, and that's pretty much it. And then of course Paul has visions or whatever, so he already knows about how to do how the Fremen work, kind of pretty much. And so she's like, oh, how do you know how to do that? Who taught you to do that? He's just like, I just figured it was the right thing to do. So she's a little surprised by that, and
which is another piece of their prophecy is he'll already know how to do this stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And then Duncan Idaho shows back up. Aquaman. Everyone fucking loves Aquaman in this fucking movie, dude. Everyone fucking guy. Honestly, I really wish I'm not crazy about prequels, but if we get a prequel, I would just love it to be about Duncan Idaho, because his character is really interesting. And he just seems like a badass, and everyone's just even when they're talking to the Emperor's army, what are they called? The Sardaukar.
Yeah, Sardokar?
Yeah, the Sardaukar, I don't know what they're called. The
Emperor's personal guys.
Yeah, the Emperor's army, whatever. They're the dude's talking, he's like, why you need? And they're like, well, the Atreides family is trained by Gurney Alec and Duncan Idaho. And they're like, oh, and he gets really pissed off that he says that, because against those two are the top of the top. And so I really like to have even with Gurney Alec, Josh Brolin's character, I like to have a movie with them. They seem interesting. I really like their characters. But and so then we go there, and then that kind of leads and so Paul's been having visions about this baddie Zendaya. He's been constantly having visions about her, and then but yeah, so like I said, so after the assassination attempt, Duncan Idaho arrives. Here comes the Fremen's leader, Stilgar.
Yeah,
he comes in. They're trying to take his knife from him. What's the crystal? Is it a crystal knife?
Chris knife.
A Chris knife.
It's basically a tooth.
Of a sandworm?
Yeah, from the sandworm, they just fashion it into a knife.
And so he comes in. They talk about, he's just like, stay away from the desert. And he's like, well, I can't promise you we're going to stay away from the desert, but your caves or whatever. I forget what they called their caves. It was started with an S, and I forget what it was.
I don't remember either.
Basically, just their caves or whatever. And so
their homes.
Yeah, he's like, we'll leave those alone, but I can't promise you that we can't go to the desert if I need to. and so he's basically like, okay, yeah, I get that. And then and so he leaves, and then but before he leaves, he looks at Paul and he's like, I've recognized you, or I have recognized you before, something like that. And so then he leaves, and so then that leaves that, and then we go to the Harkonnens. Let's not forget about them, which I think they're really done good in the first movie, but in the second movie, we'll get there. But in the second movie, they just become bitches. They really do. They just become so nerfed, which is crazy because we were talking about in this one how Paul get nerfed, and it's like no one's gonna want to, like, if it was a game, everyone would be like, no one wants to play as Paul because he's kind of getting nerfed or whatever. And so, but like, the
Harkonnens are like, they're like, was it the Harkonnens or the Sudokar that come and try and hunt him later?
Both of them.
Okay, because they were actually like killing Fremen people.
Yeah.
They were actually putting up a fight.
Well, it's really the Harkonnens that were hunting them down, but the Sardaukar or whatever, they come in to help, wipe out the Atreides, because even though they don't need to, but they want them just in case. And so they do that, and what happens after that? Well, I forgot what happens after that.
So after Stilgar leaves, I think, does it cut to them like where it's nighttime or? Oh
no, we're talking about the Harkonnens. The Harkonnens. That's right. I forgot. I was trying to remember what I thought. The Harkonnens. So we see the Harkonnens, and we see the Baron. His presence is it's very like you could tell by
discomforting.
It's just his presence. You can tell he's very like. He's strong, and his presence, you just feel it. It's nothing he needs to say. You just feel his presence. And then Batista, I think Batista does a pretty good job in this one too, as the cousin Rabbit.
In the first movie.
Yeah, in the first one, like I said. In the second one, they get nerfed so hard. But and so we meet the Harkonnens, and Baron's taking a little bath or whatever, and then they're like, and then Batista's mad because he's like, not a bath, but he's in the steam room, and Batista's like, why is the Emperor taking from us after everything we've done? And they're like, when's a gift, not a gift? So basically, like, the Emperor.
This whole thing's planned.
Yeah, we're gonna kill the Atreides family. We're gonna wipe them out. So and then
they say the Emperor said not to kill any of the Atreides.
Does he say that?
Yeah, he says the Emperor says not to kill any Atreides, so we're not gonna touch them. No. Remember, that's because he wants them to kill them, but he can't be known that he hired them to kill him. It's just the Bene Gesserit doesn't want the mother and Paul to die. She doesn't want Jessica and Paul to die because because they know Paul has their powers, and then Jessica's with them. So don't kill them, but you can kill everyone else. Yeah. Okay.
And so they're talking about that, and then they go, and then the witch leaves, this is a totally different scene from the steam room. She's not in the steam room, but they have this big throne, this little throne thing, or this little cozy couch for the Baron to sit in. And then he's basically telling them, and his assistant's like, well, we have to kill them, but you just told the witch we can't. He's like, well, I'm not going to kill them, but the desert has its way of taking people on its own. So anyway, so we meet the Harkonnens. I think the Harkonnens are really well. I really like how they were done in this one. They just have, because they don't really have a lot of screen time, but when they do have it, it's more like you just feel their presence. Like, they don't have to say much. You just feel like they're barbaric, and they just really don't care. And so they'll just kill anybody. So that's why I really like how it's well done. But anyway, so then we go. Eventually, it's nighttime. Still. The very first day we're here. Finally,
same day.
Everyone's going to sleep. And you pointed out, it's a great point. Everyone's fucking sleeping.
Yeah, they only had 3 guards, watching over the royal family inside the main fucking building.
Well, no, they were watching the power, or the shields or whatever.
Oh, they were watching the shields.
Yeah, they were watching the shields.
Well, they had a couple guards on the ground just watching over the shield room.
Yeah.
No one's, in any air vehicles or anything. They're not even, walking around the vehicles.
No. Even Josh Brolin character is sleeping. Even Duncan Idaho is sleeping. The 2 warriors, the main leaders.
You'd think they'd have, some kind of shift or something where, one group stays awake watching the skies, make sure there's no skyscraper-size ship showing up to blow up their entire compound and 10 seconds.
Exactly.
They say, everyone, you've had a rough day. We were moving all day. Everyone take a little nap.
And so then they do that, and so the shields are taken down because of Dr.
Yue.
Yeah, Dr. Yue, and Dr. Yue turns out to be like he's the rat, he's the snitch or whatever. He's helping the Baron, which blows my mind because as soon as you take your first look at the Baron, this is a guy I will not trust with whatever he says to me. And
he takes like a. They have his wife or whatever.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to bargain with the Baron to get his wife back. Like,
well, yeah, because what he tells him, he's like, because he takes the shields down, and then Duke Leto, he wakes up because he sees like a light blinking off in the distance. So he goes to check on everything, and then there's just this lady that is laying on the floor. So he goes to check on her, turns a shield on to protect himself, and then he turns her over and she's dead. But then Dr. Ewing shoots a little like needle at him or whatever, and it slowly gets into the shield. It paralyzes him, and then he replaces one of his tooth with a poison tooth. He's like, why? And he's like, I'm sorry, but they have my wife, and they just keep taking pieces off of her. And as soon as he said that, I'm like, you're not getting her back. You are not.
She's already dead, man. Yeah, she's gone.
And so Dr. Yue, he takes Duke Leto to the Baron, and then Paul and Jessica are on a ship with other Harkonnen soldiers, and they're about to just dump him off in the desert. Which, actually, they're gonna dump Paul off. They want to have some, Harkonnen time with
his mom.
Yeah, with his mom. But luckily, Paul has learned the voice, which is basically the Force. You just control or whatever, tell them what to do, and they'll do it. And so Paul's able to sway him a little bit, able to free his mom, who has more control of her voice than he does.
She tells the pilots to like murder each other.
Yeah, so they all murder each other or whatever. So then they land, and then we go back to Duke Leto with the Baron. The Baron's eating his food or whatever, and then Dr. Yue comes in, and he's like, I did what you told me to. I shut all their comms off. I lowered their shields. He's like, now, and he's like, oh, what did I promise you? And he's like, that you helped me get my wife back, and she would rejoin me. So then he like goes his little buttons go, and he starts
floating.
Yeah, he starts floating over the table. And then he grabs him, and he just like chops his head off.
Yeah.
And so
he's like, you can join her, or
he's like,
I freed her of her pain, and I will also free you of your pain. And then
he cuts his head off, and then Leto's like trying to talk, and he's just like, what? But right before he like goes to whisper, he turns his shield on just in case something happens, and then Duke Leto bites his tooth and kills everybody in the room.
Yeah, he has a poison tooth, and whenever he cracks it, he breathes out, filling the room with poison.
Yeah,
kills everyone but the Baron.
Because
he floats up to the ceiling where the gas doesn't reach him. So
yeah, and then we shoot to back to Jessica and Paul. They're in this tent or whatever underneath the sand. They realize that Leto is dead because of his ring that Dr. Yue took from him. So they basically know he's dead. And so they're doing that, and then they hear something, and it turns out to be Duncan Idaho with another ship. He's coming to save them because him and I forget what the name of the character of the Judge of Change was, but basically she was helping Duncan Idaho try to find him, I guess. And then with the little help of the Tail of Despero, the little mouse, the mouse was also there, so the Tail of Despero, he kind of helps out. And so, so then they find Duncan Idaho. Duncan Idaho takes them to like a little Fremen cave, basically.
Yeah. And
so he takes them to a Fremen cave, and then they're in there, and then they're talking, but the Darkers or whatever, they also show up there, and they
I forget how they get tipped off, but they find out where they're hiding.
Yeah.
And then in the middle of while they're making coffee, they got to bury themselves in sand. They set up a little ambush for the S guys.
Yeah. And so anyway, so then they show up, they're having a fight, and then Duncan Idaho hears it, and so then he locks the door, which the Judge of Change, Lady Jessica, and Paul are in. He locks the door. He does his little knife sword thing, and
hope you're what your sword shattered or your sword chips.
Well, that's the Fremen. That's what the Fremen say. They don't say that. They just do the little knife thing. But he learns that from Jameis at the end of the movie when they fight. So Duncan Idaho does his little thing, and then he fights off the Sardaukars. And
but he ends up dying.
But damn, whipping ass though.
Which is one of the visions that Paul has. He saw Duncan Idaho dying.
Yeah.
So it ends up coming true.
And so then but then the judge changes, like, you go to a ship and then I'll go this way because I know the desert better than y'all do. So then they split off into a seat because she had a secret room in there, like the Batman, and they take their separate ways. But so Jessica and Paul get in the ship. The judge of change, she's about to hop on this worm, but she gets stabbed right in the back by one of the Emperor's army's guys, and then she dies. But right before, she put a little thumper, and
to call the worm.
Yeah, and the worm gets them and eats them or whatever. So that's how they die. And then Paul and Jessica are flying the ship, which amazes me how everyone in this fucking movie knows how to fly a fucking thing.
Everyone knows how to fly the damn.
Like dragonfly.
Yeah, dragonfly.
Yeah, and so anyway, so then they do that, and so but then Paul has another vision, and I forget what his vision was but basically he just lets go of flying. He goes because they're getting chased by Harkonnens, and so they fly into this big old sandstorm, and he has this vision of like the desert will like lead him or whatever. So he just
lets go of the controls.
Let's go of the controls, and they're just spinning. And then they come back, and so then he grabs the controls because they're high enough. But then as soon as he starts grabbing control, he loses a wing. Then he loses another wing, and then they crash.
Yeah.
And then they're getting, but they think they're good. But it turns out a worm is chasing them. I think they're in worm territory.
Yeah.
And so a worm chasing them. They run to a rock or whatever, and this is where he meets the Fremen. And Stilgar shows back up, and then they're about to like kill him and then take their water from him.
Yeah.
And
they have these machines that can harvest water from you.
Yeah.
Apparently, not apparently. There's not a lot of water on a desert planet. So.
And so then, and so they do that, and Stilgar's like, "Oh, I know Paul. He can learn our ways because he's still young. But we're gonna kill the woman. We're gonna kill his mom. But his mom turns out to be a pretty good fighter, and she takes down Stilgar, and then." This is where he meets, and then Paul sees another guy from his vision, Jameis, and he's like, but Jameis doesn't like him. He's like, no, he's like, I want to take you down. He's like, you're not the strongest leader anymore because
the woman took you down. Yeah. So now I'm going to challenge you to be the leader.
Yeah. Well, no, not that, but like he wants to challenge the mom, but he's like, no, you can't do that. He's like, well, I don't got to listen to you because she just bested you, but I don't like these two, so I want to kill one of them. I want to kill the woman because she bested you. She's better than you, so I got to kill the woman. And
he couldn't fight her, so Paul took her place.
Yeah, and so Paul takes her place, and then they get in a fight. And this is where he's like, "May my knife chip and shatter," or something like that. And then that's what Jameis says to Paul. And then they get in a big old fight, and it turns out that, and then Paul just ends up killing them. Just looking.
Yeah, he takes him down.
Yeah.
He takes him down multiple times, and he's like,
but he just doesn't know how to. He's never killed anyone before, so he's just like, But
it's like, do you yield? And he's like, that's not how we do things around here. You gotta kill him.
And so when he also met Zendaya here, she was in the back. Like as soon as the mom beat Stilgar, like he went up top, took one of their guns, and was like watching them from afar. But Zendaya with her, she was behind him the entire time. She was
off the rip. She's like, I'll get your equipment for you. I'll make sure everything's a fair fight. Like,
yeah,
she's caring about him like from the beginning.
And so then, I don't know because right before he fights Jameis, he's sitting in the corner and he's like getting his visions together, and she just comes over there and she's like, "Well, you can have this knife. This is a good knife to die with. It would be an honor to die with this knife, but I don't think you're gonna win this fight." She basically just telling that Jameis is gonna shit on him, and then
he's a pretty good fighter. Good luck.
And so then they have their little battle, whatever. So then Paul kills him, and then everyone's like, "Damn, I kind of like Jameis," but Jameis's fault though because he wanted to kill him. But
that was our guy. But you're cool too.
You're cool. And
everybody's patting him on the back. One of their guys they've been with probably since they were kids.
Oh yeah,
now dead.
And so they go, and so then they leave, and so basically the movie ends with like them now with the Fremen and about to learn their ways, and so that's Dune Part 1. Like I said, everyone does a good job in this movie. I like the Harkonnens, how they are done in this one, because when they get into the second one, they become so nerfed and they just become bitches, and I just do not like them and how they were done in this one and the second one. But pretty much, I think Dune's pretty good. I like the Dune Part 1 is good. I like Dune Part 1.
Right. So on to Part 2 now.
Yeah. Okay. So Dune Part 2. Let's see. This one basically picks up right at the end of the first one. They're still walking together, but now they're getting chased by Harkonnens now, because they kind of the Harkonnens have kind of moved in, and they're trying to make sure the Fremen or whatever. But Paul and his mom think they're after them still, but Stilgar's like, no, they're not. They'll never come this far. No, they're not supposed. They're coming here for us. They're trying to kill us still.
Yeah.
And so. So then, which is a cool action sequence, because the Harkonnens now have like these little flying things, and they're walking in, and the music's like, but then they just start flying onto the rock. I thought that was pretty cool, and they fall, and so, but of course the Fremen kill them or whatever.
Yeah, like it's not even a chance. Like, they're just, I don't even know how they're killing them. They're like sniping them or something. They're just all falling off this rock.
Oh, they fall, yeah, because Paul and Jessica, they're not up there with the Fremen. They're not wherever the Fremen are, and then they look up, and these Harkonnens are just like poof, 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 just falling all around them, and yeah, and so then they go and then they go to the cave where some people think Paul he's a false idol, and then some people actually believe him.
Yeah.
And then
Zendaya is one of the ones that.
Well, they don't really believe in, like.
They think it's just a way that they can be controlled.
Yeah, exactly. And so they bring them there, and then they want to know. They don't really believe Stilgar, because Stilgar's like, I will give my life for this. I believe him. I've seen some of the signs or whatever. And then they want to know what to do with the mom. She's a Bene Gesserit. Their Reverend Mother is dying, so she's supposed to take her place. And then they give her. The water of life. I think that's what it's called, the water of life, which is worm piss.
Yeah, basically they extract it from baby worms.
Yeah, and then she drinks it, but a little spoiler. I mean, not a spoiler, but a little. She's pregnant. She's just
that's where you find out, or didn't they said earlier that she was
pregnant?
That's when everyone.
Yeah, but that's when everyone figures out. They're like, because then
we made a mistake.
Yeah, well, I think it's just her and Paul that know at that time, and then they're like, and then like the Reverend Mother like feels it, and she's just like, oh God, what did we do? She's pregnant or whatever, and then the baby inside of her is just like turning into this fucking Super Saiyan baby right now, and so then that happens, and so so really. Paul still has his mother, but not really, because then she like takes on like the past Reverend Mothers that have like gone before her. So she's kind of, and so then that happens, and then but
he's still learning their ways. They go through a couple like they're showing him how to walk in the desert to not attract the worm. Mm-hmm. They're fighting some of the more Harkonnen. The Harkonnens come back and they start. Harvesting more spice, and they end up destroying some of their spice harvesters. He's working with Chani, which is Zendaya. He's working with her. They're taking that shit down, and then
and then so they basically do that. I think the Paul and Chani relationship is just. It just feels, I don't know, it didn't really feel forced, but it also just didn't feel natural to me either. It was just kind of like...
Nothing brings people together more than killing other human beings.
So basically he's learned his way, and then they're like, his final test is to be able to ride a worm. And so...
This was honestly probably my favorite scene of the movie.
Yeah, I really liked this too, was the... and so they're like, don't try to get a big one, just try to... Which... I don't know how he's able. I know he can't really do it. He just
even Stilgar's like, I'm gonna give you my personalized thumper. Like I tested the frequency on this thumper myself.
And so
honestly, it's Stilgar's fault, because he puts the thumper down, and it starts thumping away, and a mountain-sized worm comes barreling towards him at like Mach 6 speed. Like,
and so he's able. And so then he's able to ride down the sand while the worm is going by. He's able to throw his hooks on there, and he's able to ride it just like it's written in the prophecy. He's able to learn the ways real quick or whatever. So he learns ways. But during all this, Paul's having like a crisis, because like he's having these visions where like he sees these people being starved, but he's following somebody. Which I guess turns out to be his mom and his visions.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I don't want to go because his mom goes south because she has to go
become the Reverend Mother.
Yeah, and so no, she has to go drink the water of life too.
Or she already drank the water of life, but she's trying to get more
Paul. For Paul. You're right. And so she's going over there, but Paul doesn't want to go south because of his vision. So he's like, no, I don't want to do that. And so he's staying with them, and so he stays with the Fremen, and then they're going after another harvester, but this harvester attack is with Gurney, who he doesn't know was still alive from the last movie. So he reunites with him, and he's like young pup or whatever. So
yeah, Gurney was like working with smugglers.
Yeah, smugglers, and so
he's like, we're gonna take down this harvester, and then he's like, oh, I recognize your foot, old man.
Yeah, right. Yeah, your foot. Yeah, and so they meet each other, and so then they're talking about how they've been and how they survived, and then this is when we go to the Harkonnens, and Batista has been put in control. He's control of Arrakis. He's in control of Arrakis. He's in charge of it. Everything
he's meant to hunt down the remaining Fremen, which they think is only 10,000?
Like 50,000 or something like that, when it's really like 1 million.
Yeah.
And so Batista's in charge now. Like they have like a little ceremony for him, and they put a necklace over him. They fucking frost him out, and then but he's not doing so good because Batista's such a bitch in this movie. He's
losing so many harvesters. He's losing ground. They're pushing further up north.
Yep, and he's just being like tossed around and stuff. Like he's just not doing good. And then he goes out there. And he's like, he calls out the Messiah or whatever the name, and he's just like, and they're all coming for him, and he's like, run! He runs back to his ship real fast. He gets out of there, leaves everyone else. He just gets in the ship and leaves, and then
the Fremen are just like massacring them. There's like they shoot missiles, which kicks up a bunch of dust.
Oh yeah,
which little does he know, like that's their main thing is they want to do guerrilla warfare in the dust.
Yep.
So he's like, I gotta get the hell out of here.
And so then he goes. So then they leave, and so then we go over. But Batista's not been doing so good as being in charge of Arrakis. And then but also while Paul's doing this, he sends a message to the Emperor that he wants to challenge him. So now the Emperor knows that Paul is alive, and his daughter, the princess, is just like, and then she goes to the Bene Gesserit and it's like, so you told my father, it's like to kill the Atreides, and she's like, of course I did, or whatever. And so then she's like, well, what are we gonna do now? Because they're kind of she's like, we'll go with another Harkonnen, the Baron's cousin, Fade. Yeah. And this is where we meet Fade, played by Austin Butler, also known as Elvis. And it's underwhelming. I didn't really like his character. Not that I didn't like him. His presence, I just didn't really get anything from his presence. It was just like the fighting, like the visuals and everything is cool. It's just the fighting in these movies, they look so slow and stiff. Like they have this big gladiator fight for him on his birthday.
Yeah, they send 3 guys out. 2 of them are drugged up. But then they leave one guy not drugged up.
Then the 3 guys they send is there's 2 like maybe not young, but they're probably like mid-30s, and they're all like,
super muscular
and stuff. The one that they did drug wasn't like an old dude, and he's just like a really old dude. I mean, he puts
probably haven't been feeding them right.
Yeah, probably haven't been feeding them right. Probably towards the end of retirement, and they're just like, and he's having trouble with them. Like,
yeah, he has a shield on, and at one point he puts the knife like up to his throat, but the shield deflects it.
Yeah,
so I'm like, he almost got you, man. Like,
yeah, for real.
This is your introduction. You're almost dead
by this guy, by this old dude or whatever. And so it's just like, all right. But I mean, I did like when we went to Getty Prime, the Harkonnens planet, because of the black and white shots. I really thought that was visually. I thought that was cool. I really liked that. Yeah. And but anyway, so we meet Fade. Everyone just keeps calling him like a sociopath. He's a psychopath. Like he's just crazy, but he can be controlled because he's got like sexual urges. And so then there's a Bene Gesserit on their
Margot Fenring,
who's also played Fragile in Death Stranding. And you want to know what the connection there is? Well, in this movie, they do a lot of baby shots when the mom is talking to her. So kind of a Death Stranding connection. And so, so Fragile, she's in there and she seduces him. Fade, because she's like, he can be controlled because he's got sexual urges, and she's like, and then she's like, but why don't you just go down there, Reverend Mother? And she's just like, oh, well, because
he's got problems with his mom.
Yeah, and they're like,
I'm a mom. So.
And she's like, well, what happened? And he's like, oh, well, he kind of killed her. He kind of killed his mom. So then that happens, and so
she has his kid.
Yeah. She also has his kid. Yeah, for like the bloodline or whatever.
And she makes sure it's a girl.
Yeah. Time. And so then they go back, and so now Paul's like, but then so now Fade's in charge of Arrakis, and Batista got demoted, and Batista walks in here. He's like, why, what are you doing here? And Fade just whips him really easily, and he's just like, kiss my toe or you're gonna die. Kisses his feet, and then the Baron's like, if you embarrass our family again, it's gonna be the last chance you get or whatever. And so then Fade goes to the underground cave or whatever where the Fremen are staying, where Paul, Stilgar, and everyone else is staying, where everyone mainly is staying in the movie. They start
shooting bombs at it, and then the Fremen like escape out the back way, but they leave everything behind, and then Fade goes inside, and then there's what was it, Chani's friend?
Yeah, Chani's best friend. Yeah,
she was left behind, and she killed a whole bunch of guys, but she ended up getting captured.
Yeah, by Fade, and he's like, I don't need to know what you know or whatever. I already know everything I need to know, and then just like sets her on fire and with the flamethrower, and then
he also incinerates the birds, like the little aviary place that they have.
Oh yeah, the birds.
Like, what's the point of that? Like, just burning fuel at that point.
And so then they do that. And so while this is going on now, Paul's like, y'all got to get out of here. Y'all have to go south. And he's like, but I can't go with you. I'm going to stay back. And then he's like, no, we can't do that. Which, because of his prophecy of the visions he's having. But also, it turns out that Gurney knows where the family's artillery is or something like that.
Yeah, nuclear warheads.
Yeah. And so he's just like, we got to go find those too. And so then they go find those and do that. But now Paul's like, I got to go south because I need to do this or whatever. So he goes south and he drinks the water of life. Jesus. And then he drinks that, but then he dies. But Chani's like, I don't want you to do it, but he does anyway. So now but then he goes in there and she's like mad at the mom or whatever. She's like, you did this. Now he's dead or whatever. She's like, you need to wake him up. She's like, no. And she's like, do it. And then she's like, so then she like uses her voice, and then she cries, and then she like wipes it with her fingers.
Yeah,
and
she mixes her water with the water of life.
Yeah,
the tear with the water of life, and then
rubs it on his lips or whatever.
Yeah, and that immediately wakes him up.
He's like, oh, that's all I needed. Zendaya, where you at? And so then he looks, and so now he's like really like overpowered. Like
he can see multiple futures, not just like the ones that are gonna come true. He can see like potential futures clearly now. And
so and also the baby, now the mother has drinking the water of life, his sister inside can talk to the mom now. So the daughter,
she also has like all this knowledge of all the old mothers. So she's like a complete human that's not even born yet.
100%. And so now Paul is like OP. Like, you cannot stop this guy now. Like, he's like, so then they hold this big meeting. So everyone shows up in the meeting or whatever, and everyone's like, no. And he's just like, who here can stop? Oh, well, Stilgar wants him to kill him because he can't. I forget what he can't do. He
can't talk at the major meeting unless he's a leader. The only way he can become a leader is if he challenges Stilgar and defeats him. But he doesn't, because he's like, why would I get rid of you? You're super important.
Exactly.
So he just walks up in there and just starts like, y'all can't beat me.
Yeah.
So you might as well follow me.
For real. Honestly, he's just like, and he's telling them like stuff from their past. Like this one guy's great grandmother or whatever. She's like how when she was a little girl or something, she died or something like that.
Yeah, she got hit in the head with a rock at 12 years old.
Yeah, like, and then that Arrakis was originally called, not Arrakis, it was really called Dune. And so I was like, oh, and so yeah.
It seems like it would be the other way around.
And so they do that, and so now everyone's like, oof, okay, we're going to follow you, you're our guy. Zendaya still doesn't like it. She's just like, this is how they're going to control us or whatever, so no. But so she doesn't like it, but they make a plan to get the Emperor to come to Arrakis because he's challenged them now. And then they're going to they're going to take out the Harkonnens and pretty much the Emperor too at the same time. So they have this cool battle sequence, which I think I really liked it. Like when they get the three worms, come in,
they start calling the worms, and then they're like eating stuff up. And don't they also like Do they have like ships and stuff too? I don't remember that.
Yeah, they have ships. Yeah.
So they're using their air power. They're using the worms.
Yeah.
And then they send all their troops out to fight them on land.
And then, in the beginning, they started off with shooting the family artillery or the warheads because they shoot it down, and then like it went, and like the rocks and like the rubble and everything like hit some of like the army and stuff and knocks them down. So that was pretty cool. But then we meet them, but while that's going on. Inside, the Baron is meeting with the Emperor, and the Emperor is like, who is this Messiah or whatever? Who's this prophet? And they're like, he's probably just some madman or whatever. We don't really know. We don't know who he is, but he's not a problem. Well, then they kind of basically take Baron's like life support, the stuff that's making him, I guess, stop the poison or whatever. They cut it off. He's dying. And then, but then Paul and his army, they fucking shoot up the place, and they break in. Baron's trying to crawl to the throne because he really wants the throne that bad. But he crawls up there. Paul finds him, and he's like, "You're gonna die like an animal," and then stabs him in the neck and kills him. And then they take the Emperor, his daughter, Fade, and everyone else. They take him to another location.
And didn't they kill what's his name? Also, didn't they kill Batista?
Well, yeah. They get Batista because once again, Batista's like he's carrying. I forget what he's doing. I guess he's just killing Fremen. And then Gurney Alec is like, "Hey!" And he turns around. And he's like, "Back from the dead." And he like brings out his flail, his only weapon he's got on him, and he like does the slowest throw in the world.
And then
Gurney just like goes
deflects that shit.
He just like slides to the left and goes and just stabs him in the neck and dies. I was just like, oh my god, dude! I was like, that is just. Absolutely, such a bitch. The Harkonnens are so much bitches in this movie, and so anyway, so then
I feel like towards the latter half of the movie, you don't see a single like Fremen die.
No,
they're just straight murdering Harkonnen.
Oh yeah, they're getting the Emperor's army and the Harkonnens' army, and so then they move the prisoners to a different place, but then the other houses have come and. To talk, because I forget what the other houses want, because there's something with the because he's like he's trying to tell him that the Emperor like set him up or whatever or something like that. So the other houses have come in for the war, and so then he comes. So
they
then,
just want to free the Emperor because they're like they're coming to the Emperor's side because they like owe him allegiance.
Oh, okay, yeah. Then there you go. And so the other houses are coming in. So then Paul's like, okay, it's time, bring them in. So then they bring in the Emperor, the Princess, and Fade or whatever. And so they're talking, and then the Emperor wants to kill the Emperor, and but the Emperor, he's like, I don't want to die. Well, the daughter's like, spare my father, and I'll have your hand in marriage or whatever. Which right before they walk in, Paul looks at fucking Zendaya and is like, I will love you as long as I breathe.
You're not gonna like what I'm about to do.
Hey,
I don't care.
And so they walk in, so the prince is like, I'll take your hand in marriage, and this can be yours or whatever, but don't kill my father. And then he's just like he accepts it, but then the Emperor like calls his dad weak, and so then he's just like, okay, choose your champion, and then you're gonna die. And so then he chooses, and Fade's like, I'm right, or well, if the Emperor doesn't do this, he's gonna tell the other houses that he's gonna blow up the spice, and they think he's bluffing because they're like the spice production.
There's gonna be no more interstellar travel.
Yeah, and so he tells them that he sends the radio to him, and so now Fade and Paul get in. I think it's the best fight in the movie. Like when if Fade was fighting like the other guys, like he fights Paul in this scene, I'd be like, okay, he's got some knife skills. But they really show off their knife skills in this little fight scene they have. I think it's pretty cool. And then, it's the funniest funny scene in the movie, because Fate stabs Paul when they're fighting, and the Fremen just like shit themselves. They are like, oh my god!
I think we made a mistake.
I think we followed the wrong guy. This guy was no.
If Paul dies, we're in a pickle. We got the Emperor in the room with us. We're holding him hostage. Yeah. Our main guy just died. I don't know if we're gonna make it out of here.
And so yeah. But then Paul takes the knife out while Fade has another knife trying to stab him, and he stabs Fade, and then Fade's like, you fought well, Atreides, and then he just dies. And then Paul's about to kill the Emperor again, but then the daughter's like, no, take my hand in marriage or whatever. So then he does that, and then Zendaya leaves. And then
she calls her Uber.
It's so hilarious because she's mad. So like on here, like on regularly when you get mad or pissed off, you're just like, I'm gonna go for a drive. Give me my keys. She's got to be like, gotta go find me a worm to ride real fast to get this anger out of me. And so
my thought was like, okay, so all of the Fremen are here.
Pretty much, yeah.
They're trying to like get on these ship, and they're gonna start fighting the other houses now.
Well, yeah, because the houses don't accept like his thing or whatever. They're like, we don't believe you. We're not gonna accept your thing or whatever. So we're gonna try to fight you.
So where the fuck is Zendaya gonna go? She gets on her worm and she's like, I just gotta get out of here.
She's got a tennis match to go to. And so basically, Shawnee rides off on her thing, and then and that's pretty much the end of Dune Part 2. Is that the houses, Paul and the other houses are about to go to war, the holy war, as they say, and then Shawnee's getting her anger out, crying on a worm. So that's pretty much it. But that's Dune. Overall, I liked it. I think they're both decent movies. I think they're really good movies. I just don't know if I watch one. I can't really say they're like two different movies because they're really like if you watch them probably back to back, it probably feels like one complete full movie. Yeah. It's just there was a lot of stuff in the books that they had to get out, so they had to do it in second two parts. But my biggest thing I don't like in the second one is just how the Harkonnens are handled, because they are just nerfed and they are just bitched in this movie. Like they just are just not good.
Yeah, it's like the Fremen were such an overwhelming force. I'm just like, I don't know what they're gonna do in the next movie to like keep the conflict up, because like that's what you gotta have in movies. You gotta have some kind of conflict, but like what's gonna be that force that's gonna show up that's gonna make it to where there's some kind of, I don't know, just conflict between them. Like, what's going to be as tough as them? Like, I guess a whole bunch of different houses. That might be what it is. I just don't know where they're going.
For real. Like I said, we haven't read the books. We know there's a third one. I think it's like called Dune Messiah or whatever. But we don't really know. I'm not reading the books. But yeah, like I said, I liked it. I think it's a very good movie, directed very well. Everyone does a pretty good part. The music.
Oh yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It's just.
Like I said, just the minus flaw. I just don't really like how the Harkonnens were like bitched out in this one. They were just kind of like, they just made them look like a bitch. In the first one, because in the first one they don't really have a lot to do, because I know you had to give more screen time to Paul and his mother or whatever, and to see their house fall pretty much. And the Harkonnens, when they're there, you feel their presence, so you're like, okay, in the second one, they're gonna be top shit.
They're destroying shit left and right. Like they came out of nowhere. They didn't even give the Atreides a chance.
Yeah, they didn't like send them a declaration of war or nothing. They just fucking dropped in on them, and we're just like, boom, you're done. Which is why I guess everyone was sleeping, because I guess before you go to war, you send them a message that you're about to declare war on them or whatever, and they didn't do that. They just dropped in and just wiped them out. But like I said, I just, the only thing I really didn't like was the Harkonnens, and like I said,
I feel like the Sardaukar, like they're like they're non-existent in the second movie. Like they're there, but you don't really see them. Like I remember Duncan Idaho's like, whenever you're fighting these guys, you know you're fighting them.
When you cross, he's like, when you cross swords with the Sardaukar, and you know it, and so But like I said, you feel their presence in the first one, which is like you feel like they're a little more evil in the first one, and I guess the second part 2 was just like, okay, now the good guys are gonna have their power now; they're gonna take over the bad guys. But I'm like,
it's not even equal.
It's not even equal, bro. I mean, they just get fucking destroyed. So, but like I said, I like them. I think they're pretty good. So hopefully they get a third one out. If not, that's okay.
Yeah, I think they will.
But like I said, that's that. Okay, what would you give it? What would you like separate, like Dune Part 1, Dune Part 2? Dune Part 1, what are you giving it?
Dune Part 1, I'd probably give it like, let's say a 7, because the first half of the movie is so overwhelmingly slow. There's so much exposition. There's so many names you got to remember. There's so many places. It's just watching it a second time makes it so much easier, but the first time you watch it, you're going to be like, this is information overload.
Yeah.
And then the last half of the movie, it gets really good. They start, like, the Harkonnens start taking over everything. That part's really good. The second movie, I'd probably give that, like, I'd say, like, an 8, 8.5. I definitely prefer the second one.
You like the second one more?
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless the last half of the movie, they sort of make the likable characters, like, seem a little evil.
Yeah.
which that's just my personal preference. It's still very good. I think it's a very good story, but it's just my personal preference.
I'll probably give the first one. I'll give the first one like an 8 because it's a setup movie. I think it sets up very well.
Yeah.
And then the second one, I give an 8.5 because I really like it. I think an 8 for the first one and 8.5 for the second one. I think that's good. But yeah, that's what we thought about Dune Part 1 and Part 2.
All right.
The MonsterVerse is next.
Yes. And who knows when Dune Part 3 will come out? Because they're talking about waiting for
12 years.
Did Timothy Chalamet to look older. So, 12 years from now, we'll have Part 3.
Hell yeah. We're signing out.